Hey guys, welcome to another video. Now today is May the 4th, so I thought I'd do a special Star Wars inspired visual effects shot for you guys. Now at the beginning of the video you saw the final result, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so we are in the default scene in Blender. We're just going to delete both the cube and the light right here. And once we have those deleted, we can hit 1 on our numpad to go into the side view, and then hold Control Alt and then press the 0 on our numpad to actually make the camera come to our view, just so it's nice on the side right there. So now we can actually start modeling out a can. We're basically going to be crushing a can in this shot. Also, if you want to download any of the files I use, they are in the description below, so you can work along with us. So first of all, we're just going to import that reference image. So let's just hit F3, and then we're going to type in reference right here, So now we can find that image. Okay, so here is my image right here. I'm just going to click that and then load the reference image like that. So now we actually need to model out a can. So I'm just going to walk you through a simple way to do that. I'm just going to hide the camera by hitting H like that. So now we can hit Shift A. We're going to add in a cylinder. We're just going to scale the cylinder like that until it fits the edges, and then SZ to scale on the Z axis, just like that. So now we can see that we have a basic shape of it. Now to actually start modeling, we need to go into edit mode by hitting tab like that. So now we're in edit mode. We can go ahead and start adding some edge loops by holding Control and R. And basically we just want to get these up right here where it starts to kind of form up like that. And then also we need to hold Control R again, click, and then drag down right here, just because these areas up at the bottom and the top right here are going to be more difficult. So we just want to get this kind of area figured out as of now. And then we can first of all, we'll mess around with the top. We can hit 2 to go into edge select, and then holding Alt we can click right here, and then I'll actually select the whole edge loop at the top here, and we're just going to size that down about right there. We basically want to make a rough outline of this little thing, so we're just going to add some more edge loops. So Control R, just going to move it here, just going to move it in a bit, Control R right here, move that in a bit, and then also up here we need to make a little bit of a lip. So we can add a loop cut there, just hit 3 to go into face select, hold Alt and click, and then we're just going to size this out a bit like that. Just to give us a little edge right there. Then we also need to add another edge loop in between here, up at the top, and we can just size this edge loop down by hitting S like that, just so there's a little bit of a lip right here. So that is looking pretty good for the top. We can now move down to the bottom. The bottom's a little bit easier, so again we're going to hit 2 to go into edge select, Alt click down here, select that. We're just going to size that down a little bit, so right there is looking good. And then Control R, edge loop, I'm just going to form it to the bottom right here, like that. Maybe one more right here. So that is looking pretty good. So now what we need to do to actually smooth this out a bit and add a little bit more geometry is to actually add in a subdivision surface modifier. So let's come to the modifiers, go add subdivision surface. I'm just going to change mine to a 3 like that. And now if we come into the solid view, it should be a lot smoother and everything, but we will notice that it's changed our shape and everything of our actual can, so we need to fix that a little bit. So let's go into 1 again. We can go back into edit mode if you went out of it, and then we just need to add a couple more edge loops to kind of make this like that. Okay, so to fix this issue, all we have to do is just add a couple more edge loops. So let's just add one here and then maybe move that down a little bit. Right there is looking pretty good. And then same for up top, we just need to add a edge loop, kind of bring this up a bit, and you can see that that edge has now gone back more towards where the actual image is. Now the final thing that we need to do for our modeling is to actually fix the bottom and the top. As you can see, the top is kind of getting this weird like formation right here, and that's actually to do with the subdivision surface modifier. So let's just go into the face select right here, select that. Then instead of hitting Control R to add an edge loop, we can actually hit I to inset. That'll basically just duplicate this little face inward. And so right there is where I'm going to inset, and then we could just hit E to extrude. We're just going to extrude that down right there, and you should still see this little thing right here, so we need to hit I again. I'm just going to do it twice, just so we have nice little geometry up here. We're not going to be worrying about modeling out the top and everything, since we won't really see that in the shot, so we're just going to leave it like that. Now we have to do the same thing for the bottom here. You will see the same thing is happening. So again, just select it, go into edit mode, 3 to go into face select this bottom face. Then we can just hit I to inset, and then we need to extrude it up like that. And then we need to hit I again just to extrude that inwards a little bit, just so we don't have that weird face issue. And now we have the can actually modeled out and everything. It's looking pretty good. So we can actually move this. I'm just going to move it over so we can do some texture work and everything. So let's go hit 1 again. Now we actually need to put this texture onto our can and everything. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, we need to actually have some lighting in our scene. So I'm just going to go to the shading tab. And then go, instead of object, we need to go into world, and then we're going to add in a environment texture right here. Plug the color into the color of our background, and then just open up the HDRI I have linked in the description. Okay, so here is our HDRI. We're going to use the abandoned tank farm right here, so I'm just going to open that image up. And now if we go into the rendered view, we should see that we actually have more lighting in our scene and everything. Now this is a good time to go ahead and change our render settings, so let's come up here. Let's change it to cycles, GPU compute. Then the sampling, I like to make mine just 64 for now. We can always change that later. We can turn adaptive sampling on, then viewport denoising on. Light paths, I like to change all these to 3. We can always come back and change these if we need to. And then turn the reflective and refractive caustics off, since we won't be dealing with those. Next, we need to come down to the film tab, make sure that transparent is turned on, just so the background is going to be rendered out as transparency. Next, we can come to performance, and since I'm rendering on a GPU, we're going to make it 512 by 512 for the tile sizes, and that should be everything that we have to do. So now let's actually worry about shading the actual thing, now that we have lighting and all of our render settings finished. So we're going to come back to object instead of world. We're going to create a new material. So this material over here, let's come to the material preview. We're going to name this material Coke, like that. So now we can actually project this texture onto our Coke can. So to do that, we're going to add in the image into our nodes. So I'm just going to add in a image texture right there and plug that into the base color. And since we already imported this image into Blender, we can just hit this little button right here and then click this little Coke image. And now if we go to material preview, we should see that our image is now on our object. You will notice, however, it's not correctly aligned or anything. So what we need to do is actually UV unwrap this and actually project this onto the object. All we need to do is go into edit mode by hitting tab, then hit A to select all the geometry and everything. Then we're just going to hit U to unwrap the object, and this specific object we're going to unwrap from our project from view. Now you do, for this step, you do want to make sure that you are in the side view by hitting 1. You don't want to be out here. You want to make sure that you're in 1. And then just do that same process and unwrap by view by projection. Now you can see that it's done this so far, and that is looking pretty good. However, we still need to correctly align it and everything. So an easy way I found to do that is to come into the UV editing tab, and we can have this whole menu right here. And you can see over here, you can see this geometry and everything. Basically, we just need to hit A to select all this, and then just position this where the actual can is right here. And it's nice because this layout automatically projected the can and everything on this other tab over here, so we can just align that pretty easily like that. It doesn't need to be perfect, you just want to make sure that it looks about correct, which that does, so that is looking pretty good. Okay, so we are done with the UV editing, so we can come back to shading. Now to add a little bit more detail to our scene, since right now it's not really detailed at all, we can just go plug the color into the specular and also the roughness, and that'll basically use this image as an estimate for the specular and roughness. And you can see that that's already gotten us some cool detail and everything. If you don't like it, however, you can always bring in some color ramps and mess around with the exact values and everything. I think I'm going to make the specular just a little bit less, since it's a little too much right now. So I just brought that black value in a little bit. Okay, so finally one thing I want to do is to actually make this metal texture a actual texture, instead of it just being from this image and everything, since right now it kind of looks like we just copy and pasted an image on this metal, whereas this is fine. This looks pretty good up here and everything. So what we can do is go ahead and make a new material over here. I'm just going to name this the metal material, like that. Let's actually come out to layout view. I find it easier to be in layout view and everything. Now we basically just need to select all the geometry where the metal texture is actually going to be. So we need to go into edit mode again, and I know I want to select all of this top layer up here, but if I select it right now, you should see that it selects it there but not on the back. So what we actually need to do is come back to 1, we need to enable this X-ray up here. So now we actually have what we want. We just want to drag and select all this over here. We also want to make sure we get the top as well. So let's get out of X-ray. And to select the top, it's pretty easy. All we got to do is hold Shift, just click, and then for these edge loops and stuff right here, you can just hold Alt and then click, and that'll actually select the face edge loop right there. Okay, so now we have the whole top selected and everything. We need to go back into the material right here, and you should see that it's on the coke material right now. We want to switch it over to the metal material, and then we just hit assign, and that should assign it to be its new material. So now this down here is still the coke material, however the top is now the metal. Now we need to do the same thing to the bottom as well. So let's just come to the side view, go up to X-ray. We're just going to select all this down here like that. So that has selected everything besides the bottom. So again, hold Shift, Alt, and click in between there just to select some of those. And then the final thing that we need to do is just select this face right here, and again, metal, and assign. Okay, so let's actually make this metal look like the actual image now. So let's go into rendered. We can go out of edit mode by hitting tab again. So again, we need it to be metallic like that. So that's looking pretty good so far. The specular, I'm going to change that down a little bit, and the roughness needs to go down just a tad. We still want a little bit, because if we do too much, it's going to look like it's super shiny. So around something like that is looking pretty good. And also I'm going to change it up to be a little bit wider and stuff. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have it all modeled and textured correctly and everything. So now let's come into the camera view just to see what this is looking like. So that is looking pretty good. We can actually go ahead and delete this reference image since we're not going to be using that anymore. So now what we need to do is actually import our footage inside of Blender. And so I'm going to do that by unhiding the camera real quick. I'm going to select the camera, go into the camera settings, background images. And then we're just going to add an image, movie clip, and then open that clip. Okay, so here's the clip right here. I'm just going to open that up like that. We should see that it's in the background now. If for any reason you don't see it, it's probably because you have your film transparency turned off. So like that, you just want to make sure that's turned on, and you should see it. So now we can see that basically my clip is me raising the can up. I'm going to crush it at one point and then drop it. So that's pretty easy and everything. Let's find the final frame. So my final frame is 177. I'm just going to set that to be my end keyframe right there. Okay, so to actually move around the can and everything, we're going to mess around with some of the actual rigid bodies and some physics inside of Blender. So first of all, we need to make this a rigid body. So let's just come here, make it a rigid body. And for the mass is actually too much for our scene. I'm just going to put it to a 0.1 kilogram for now, since that will basically affect what forces we're going to put on this object. So now if I go to the first frame, you should see that the can drops and everything. And that's actually because rigid bodies are affected by gravity and everything, so that is looking pretty good. Now we actually need a force strong enough that it will keep the can kind of in the in midair and everything. So what we can do is hit Shift A. We're going to come down to force field, and for this I'm going to just do a basic force like that. Now the basic force, if I do the strength up, it'll actually push away an object and everything. However, we don't want that. We want it to attract an object. So what we need to do is actually make it negative. And for this, we just need to do a crazy number and just see how that looks. So like that, you can see it wiggling up and down and being attracted to the force. Now, if I move around the force, you should see that the actual can follows it a little bit. Now, the force is actually, the strength of it isn't as high right now, so it's kind of lagging behind and stuff, so it looks pretty cool. So what we actually need to do, let's increase that just a little bit. It's some crazy number. It's very random sometimes, so now you can see it's tracking to that actual force object a little bit easier. Okay, so next thing we need to do is actually go ahead and animate this force and everything. So let's first of all select both the can and the force, and we're just going to move it down here out of the way. It's out of the camera's way. Then we can just hit I, and then we're going to set a location keyframe for both of this. Now one thing we will notice if I kind of bring the can up is that we can actually see this top little thing that we didn't model out and everything, so that'll look kind of weird. So what we need to do is actually rotate that. So let's just hit double tap R, and then rotate it a bit backwards and everything, and just to hide that since we didn't bother modeling it out. So that is looking good. Now all we need to do is animate this force. So we're going to see where the can actually needs to start coming up and everything. So right around here. So I think that is where I'm going to have the can rise up and everything. So again, just I location. That is where the force field is going to stay. until right here. We actually need the force field to be in the center, so we're just going to Z, move that up right there, and you'll notice that the can kind of stays there, but don't worry about that. That's actually because the simulation hasn't been started or anything. So again, just hit I, location. So now we just need the force field to sit there for a while until I kind of let go of my hands right here. So then right here, I'm going to say 150 for me. I'm going to, okay, so I'm going to select this little keyframe down here, hold Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste right here, just so the location changes. And then we can actually come over here and actually select this location, copy that, and then paste that right there, just so the can actually falls again. So that is looking pretty good and everything. Now if we actually come back and kind of go to the first frame and then press play, you should see that the can now follows the force field and everything. So that's looking pretty cool. So that's where it should be crushed. You will notice that the can is like bobbing up and down and everything, and that's actually to do with the strength. So I'm just going to change that strength up a little bit. I don't want it to bob up and down as much, so you can just play around with that. Okay, so here is the strength I landed on. I actually had to decrease the strength to actually get it to stop moving up and down as much. I think the strength was too much, so it was just being kind of weird and everything. So there it is. You can see that the can correctly follows and everything. It's looking pretty good and everything. If you wanted to, you could also add in some other force fields like a turbulence or something and have it parented to this force. But I'm not going to worry about that for this tutorial. So the final thing that we need to do is actually crush this can, and we're going to do that by using shape keys. Now shape keys are kind of new to me, but they're an awesome tool that you can use for easy animation and everything. So what we can do to actually utilize that is we're going to come out here to the side view, and then what we can actually do is go over here, and you'll see this little shape keys menu over here. Now if you hit this plus icon, that says sets a basis shape key and everything. So this is what the object is going to be like default. We don't want to edit anything when we have this basis shape key, so we actually need to add another shape key, and this will be the shape key we'll actually make it crushed. So I'm just going to name that crushed right there. Okay, so that is our crush shape key. So now what we need to do is, with that selected, we're going to come back into edit mode by hitting tab again, and we need to add a little bit more geometry real quick. So again, Control R, I'm just going to hold that right there. Instead of clicking though, we're going to move our scroll wheel up just so we have a little bit more loop cuts and everything. And then we just right click to let go of that, just so we have a little bit more geometry to work with. Now to actually crush the can, what we can do is go into face select mode, and if we turn this up here on, basically this, if we select something in the middle, it'll affect the geometry around it, whereas before it would only affect the face that we were using. So we can use this proportional editing to actually make it crushed a little bit. So what I'm going to do is you can actually change the fall off range. So I'm going to change my fall off to be random. So now if you kind of view that, that is what that is doing and everything. So that is looking pretty cool. I'm going to select one of the middle edge loops right here. So holding Alt, I'm just going to click one of these middle ones right here. And then we're just going to hit S, and you can see that's kind of doing a pretty cool effect right now, like that. However, we only want it to do it in the X-axis like that. So I'm just going to quickly, we might need to also select some other edge loops just so the area is a lot larger that we're working with. So I'm just going to select all those, hit S, X, and just gonna scale those in a bit like that. That looks pretty cool. Right now we can also select some of these. We're just trying to get trying to make it look a little bit randomized and everything, like you would actually crush a can. So kind of just play around with it. I'm just selecting some random edge loops and stuff right now and kind of scaling those in a little bit. I am scaling on the X-axis just to get that kind of crushed effect. And then finally, what I also like to do is just select one of these and just make that come out a little bit like that. It just adds a little bit more crushedness to it. So if I come out of edit mode, you should see that it goes back to normal. So that's one nice thing about the shape keys. If you wanted it to be the crush effect, we have this value down here, and if you just move this slider, you can see that it basically either crushes it or you can uncrush it and stuff. And it's just a pretty cool effect that we have going on here. Let's actually view what that looks like with the material on it. Okay, so that is looking pretty cool and everything. Now you can model this out more, doing some more proportional editing and stuff, but I'm going to leave it like this for now. But you can, of course, mess around with it and see how you like it. Okay, so now the final thing that we have to do is just animate this little value button down here to actually crush this can. Okay, so right here we actually need the can to be its uncrushed state. So I'm going to hit this button over here to the value, make sure that the value is 0. And then right when it gets crushed, so right here, I'm going to set this value to be 1, the highest value, and then press this little animate property button right there. And now we should see that right here, we actually have the can crushing and everything. I actually need to mess around with my keyframes a little bit. What's the last frame? So right here, I'm going to set my keyframe to be where it's uncrushed, just so it's a little bit, looks a little bit better. So like that, you can see that my hands close and the can crushes and everything. So that looks pretty good, and then the can falls back down and stuff. So that's pretty much the whole effect and everything. Let's actually go ahead and bake in our physics in our world. So let's come up to the scene properties, go to rigid body world, and then we're just going to come to cache and bake. That will basically bake in all of our properties so we can't change them around anymore, and it should give us a little bit smoother playback in our viewport. Okay, so now we have all of that baked in. Let's go ahead and see how this looks when we render it out. I'm basically just looking for the lighting and everything. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. One thing that we will have to do is actually go ahead and composite in some stuff. So let's come do that right now. Go to compositing. We're going to hit use nodes. We're going to add in, we need to add in a alpha over node to combine 2 of the nodes. Then we're just going to add in our movie clip node like that. And the movie clip should already be in there. So we're just going to click that right here. We can just place the alpha over node up here. Now a fast way to connect nodes I found out recently is to actually make sure that you have both of them selected, then just press F, and that will actually connect the correct socket depending on what sockets you have. So I'm just going to select both of these, press F again, and now they're correctly lined up and everything. So that's just a quick little tip. Then if you have the node ring, we'll add on shift control click that, and you should add in a viewer node just so we can see the shading and everything. And then we want to make sure this alpha over is into our composite. So that looks pretty good and everything. We do need to change the lighting down a little bit. So I'm going to come to the world settings, and then for this background node, I'm going to try a 0.4. We'll try a 0.4 just to see if we can match our lighting a little bit better. Okay, so that is looking pretty good and everything. One thing you do notice is that we have a little bit of one thing that I do notice real quick is that we have a little bit of geometry showing right here, and that's a real easy fix. All we have to do is come out of here, then just right click and shade smooth, and that should fix it. Okay, so here is the final result that we have. We can go ahead and render this out because this is looking pretty good right now. So to do that, let's come over here back to layout tab again. We can come up here to the output properties. We're going to come down here. Now, because this renders out so quick, I'm actually going to save it as a movie clip. So let's go ahead and save that. Okay, so once you set your file location, we can change the file format to FFmpeg video, encoding to MP4, and then I like to set my output quality to be high. Okay, so once you have all of that, we can go ahead and come up here and render our animation. Okay guys, here is the final result we got from this tutorial. Now shape keys are a really fun thing that you can mess around in Blender. I highly recommend you guys kind of play around with them and see what you can do and what you can't. I'm just beginning to learn how to use them, but I think they are a really powerful source and something that you guys should definitely consider on some of your own visual effects projects. Anyways guys, we have a Patreon and Discord. Links to those can be found in the description below. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.